Welcome back, dear friends, to the Crimson Academy's course on the Call of the Divine Beloved, selected mystical works of Bahá'u'lláh. In this section, dear friends, we will be exploring the Four Valleys. O my eminent friend, those who progress in mystic wayfaring are of four kinds. I shall describe them in brief, that the grades and qualities of each kind may become plain to thee. Baha'u'lláh. His Holiness Baha'u'lláh ends the introduction to his short book on spiritual search and maturation, The Four Valleys, by saying, those who progress in mystic wayfaring are of four kinds. We see those four stages represented scientifically by the earthly classifications of mineral, plant, animal, and human, or by the four seasons of the year. They're often represented symbolically by the four elements: earth, water, fire, and air. We see them represented metaphorically as the movement from infant to child, to youth to adult. We see them in the traditional four ways of attaining knowledge: the senses, reason, tradition, and inspiration. We see them analogically as a gradual progression from inner directed to other directed. These four-step cosmologies closely correspond with many of the level-specific psychological and moral growth models. One of the many ways to look at His Holiness Baha'u'llah's The Four Valleys revolves around its suggestion of a four-level hierarchy of personal and spiritual growth, with each level taking its name from the first line in each valley: self, reason, love, and finally, the apex of consciousness. The first valley centered around His Holiness Baha'u'llah's emphasis on self-discovery, could be called the Valley of Self. In the first valley, Baha'u'lláh says, this station appertaineth to the self. On this plane, he continues, the self is not rejected, but beloved. It is well-pleasing and not to be shunned. This first valley, which corresponds nicely with the initial one of Baha'u'llah's seven valleys, and the first stage of all the perennial philosophy models, focuses on the discovery of self as the starting place for all spiritual attainment. Here, His Holiness Baha'u'lláh encourages the seeker to study the map of his own soul and to look within for the deep understanding which guides all search. This valley also represents the central Baha'i principle that asks each person to conduct their own independent investigation of truth. Dear friends, in the second valley, His Holiness Baha'u'lláh writes, this is the station of primal reason. In other places, notably the seven valleys, Baha'u'lláh uses the word reason almost interchangeably with the word knowledge. All of the four-level cosmologies use some variant of this concept of knowledge, or the discovery of logic and reason, to describe the opening of the higher mind, the human intellect, to spiritual search and the promptings of the soul. Accordingly, we could call this stage the Valley of Reason, or the Valley of Knowledge. Here in the second valley, the newly discovered self transcends its self-awareness, supplanting it with broader consciousness, which allows it to see beyond the boundaries of the first valley and into the mysterious heart of symbols and signs. Dear friend, as we enter into the third valley, His Holiness Baha'u'lláh wrote that no soul may dwell on this kingly throne save the beauty of love. On this plane, neither the reign of reason is sufficient, nor the authority of self. Here he emphasized the attainment of love and pure affection for the eternal after the stages of search for self and growing self knowledge have been surpassed. This stage focuses on the great yearning of the human heart and soul for beauty, transcendence, and connection with the Creator. His Holiness Baha'u'lláh clearly says that this realm is not to be pictured in words, and spends most of the short duration of his description of the third valley quoting from the Quran and Rumi's Masnavi. The lover's teacher is the loved one's beauty. We could call this stage of human development the valley of the beauty of love. And finally, dear friends, Baha'u'lláh calls the fourth valley the apex of consciousness and the secret of divine guidance. And this realm of full awareness, of utter self effacement, he says, that astonishment here is highly prized and utter poverty essential. The idea of a highly developed consciousness striving for selflessness and self effacement resonates with the Buddhist concept of nirvana, which literally means non drawing, as a fire ceases to draw, with the Hindu idea of nirguna, which means without qualities, or the mystical Jewish theory of Ensof, or the not finite. This is the final stage of human development. Then we could refer to as the valley of the apex of consciousness.